You know that friend who always cancels plans, sick again, tired again, maybe next time. Here's what nobody tells you about that friend. They're not avoiding you. They're protecting something. And if you're someone who genuinely gets more excited about a Friday night in pajamas than a Friday night out, stay right here. Because you're about to feel very seen. This video is about the psychology of people who love staying home. Not the version society calls boring, the version science actually has a lot to say about. We're going to go through why some people are genuinely wired for solitude, what it costs them, what it gives them, and the one question at the end that I want you to sit with honestly. Because there's a difference between staying home because it fills you up and staying home because leaving feels too heavy. And that difference matters more than most people realize. Here's the foundational thing. Extroverts recharge by being around people. The noise, the movement, the energy of a room, that fills them up. For introverts and people who genuinely prefer solitude, it works the opposite way. Every social interaction, even a good one, even a fun one, slowly drains the battery. Home is the only charger that actually works. Psychologists describe this through something called optimal arousal theory. The idea is that every person has a threshold, a level of stimulation at which they function best. Some people need more input to feel alive. Others need significantly less. Too much stimulation, and they don't just get tired, they get dysregulated, irritable, foggy, like a system running too many programs at once. This isn't laziness. It's not fear. It's not a personality flaw that needs fixing. It's just how certain nervous systems are wired. And no amount of pushing through it changes the underlying architecture. But introversion is only part of it. For a lot of people who love staying home, the deeper thing is control. Not control in a rigid or anxious sense. Control in the sense of being able to shape your own environment. Out there, the world is unpredictable. Loud strangers. Last-minute changes. Conversations that go nowhere. Social rules you didn't agree to but have to follow anyway. For people with anxiety or high sensory sensitivity, that unpredictability isn't just uncomfortable. It's exhausting in a way that's hard to explain to someone who doesn't experience it. At home, you control the lighting, the noise level, the temperature, who's there and who isn't, what's playing in the background, whether you talk or don't. For some people, that control isn't a luxury. It's the difference between functioning and not functioning. And here's what's worth saying, plainly. Needing a controllable environment doesn't make you fragile. It makes you self-aware enough to know what your system actually needs, which is more than most people ever figure out. Here's where it gets interesting. Studies consistently show that people who enjoy solitude tend to score higher on measures of creativity, introspection, and complex problem solving. Not despite the time alone, because of it. The brain in solitude operates differently than the brain in social mode. When you remove the constant input of other people's needs, expectations, and noise, a different kind of processing comes online. Connections form, ideas surface. Things that were tangled start to clarify. The best thinking doesn't usually happen at a crowded bar. It happens in a quiet room at 11 p.m., when something you've been carrying for weeks finally makes sense. Staying home isn't doing nothing. It's doing something that looks like nothing from the outside, but is actually the entire engine of a certain kind of mind. And yet, society spends a lot of energy telling this person they're wrong. The influencers with their Friday nights out. the live your best life culture. The subtle implication that if you're not out there making memories, you're wasting something. But here's a question worth asking. What if your best life is a documentary, some soup, and zero obligations on a Saturday night? What if that's not sad? What if that's just accurate? What if knowing exactly what fills you up and choosing it deliberately is one of the more sophisticated things a person can do? There's a term psychologists use for this: low stimulation preference. It describes people whose inner world is rich enough that they don't need the external world to constantly entertain them. They find genuine pleasure in small, repeatable rituals. The morning coffee in the same spot, the way the light changes in the late afternoon, the comfort of a show they've already seen, things most people rush past without noticing. That's not emptiness. That's attention. That's a particular kind of richness that doesn't photograph well, but is entirely real. But here's the part I need to say carefully. Some people stay home for a different reason. Social anxiety that makes the outside world feel genuinely threatening. Depression that quietly asks, what's the point of going anywhere? Past experiences that made crowds or unpredictability feel unsafe in ways that never fully resolved. For those people, home becomes something complicated, a refuge and a cage at the same time. The place that protects them also becomes the place that keeps them from the things that might help. And the distinction matters. Are you staying home because it genuinely fills you up? Because solitude is your natural state and you come back from it restored? Or are you staying home because leaving feels too heavy? Because the world outside has started to feel like something to survive rather than something to move through? One is peace. The other is hiding, and only you know which one it actually is. For the people who truly love staying home, not as avoidance, but as genuine preference, they're not missing out on life. They're living it differently. They notice things others rush past. They think things others don't have the quiet to think. They build an inner life that's surprisingly rich, surprisingly stable, and almost impossible to explain to someone who's never needed it. They're wired for depth over noise, for peace over performance. And there's nothing wrong with that. So tell me honestly, do you stay home because it fills you up? Or do you think some part of it is hiding? Drop it in the comments. I read them. And if you want more psychology that actually sounds like your own head, subscribe. I make these every week for people who think more than they let on. The next video is going to land harder than this one. It's already there. Click it.